Today we will start with the GL configuration, basic GL configuration. So this is the agenda for today. Chart of account components. So like value sets we will create. Then we'll create chart of account structure and instance. Account values we will create, and there is an option like if we have say 3000 accounts, 500 cost centers, 100 companies, we cannot create those manually. So what are the options available for upload? So that I'll explain, and as part of that upload process I'll also touch base on data migration and integration. What are different options for data migration and integration? And then account combinations, how can we see those combinations, chart of account mapping. We'll also see how to create account hierarchies and that cross-validation rule. And then if we have some time, we'll create primary ledger also today. Okay, so this is the agenda for today. And we'll follow the same model as yesterday. We'll have a 4.5 hour session, and then followed by 1.5 hours of hands-on. Okay, so let's there is some theory portion in this which I'll go through very quickly, because all of you are very experienced in EBS financials. So what is chart of account and how it should be designed, I'll not spend too much time on it, but there are some terms which are new to this ERP cloud or fusion, so I'll go through those. So as I explained yesterday, chart of account in fusion or ERP cloud is divided in two steps. One is chart of account structure and another one is chart of account instance. Your instance, structure instance, will be based on your structure. You can compare your EBS chart of account with instance. So if in EBS you have 5 chart of accounts, then you and if you want to retain everything as it is, then you will be creating 5 different instances. If like number of segments and segment orders all are same, then you can create one structure and 5 different instances. So it depends. And then chart of account structure will have segments. So same concept as EBS, it is a segmented structure, and up to 30 segments of 25 characters each you can have in your chart of account, and the maximum length of your chart of account including separators should not exceed 240. You can expect one question in certification, what is the maximum length of your chart of account? So it is 240 characters including separators. Okay, so each segment will have a permissible values, that is value set, and at structure level you will be associating a default value set to each segment, and at structure instance level you can change that value set. So as I was explaining, like for a global company, like they have a local requirement for one segment, so you can have that segment in your chart of account structure, and locally when you create say UK instance and India instance, chart of account instance, you can have a different value set attached to that same segment. Okay, and we used to call it as flexfield qualifier or segment qualifier. So here we call it as segment label, and these are the segment label: primary balancing, second balancing, third balancing. I'll come to this in a while. You can have a cost center, natural account, intercompany, local use and management. Management and local use I have not seen anybody using. Management I think Oracle has suggested not to use at the moment, so it is for future use. So there are 2 mandatory labels which must be associated with your chart of account. One is your company, this primary balancing, and another one is natural account. Okay, your chart of account must have these 2 segment labels, 2 segments, at least 2 segments with these 2 segment labels. Okay. if you are implementing expense management, then one of the segments should be your cost center segment. It is mandatory. Without this cost center segment, expense management will not generate the accounting entries. So for expense management, this is mandatory. Okay. Intercompany segment, it is used for defining that intercompany transactions or to perform intercompany reconciliation and all. So one of the segment you will define as intercompany. So when you have transactions between two different companies, two different balancing segments, system will use this particular account or that intercompany segment to populate that other company value. Okay. Now there are three. In EBS, we can have only one balancing segment. So normally we call it as company or entity, legal entity or entity. So all your transaction journals should balance by that company segment or primary balancing segment or balancing segment. Okay, but in Fusion or Cloud, you can have up to 3 balancing segments. Okay, so why do we need 3 balancing segment? So normally say company 101 and 102 you can have, and 101 you are doing say 1000 debit and 102 you are having 1000 credit. Okay, or your debit and credit should match. If it is an intercompany transaction, then 101 to 102 and $1,000, and then intercompany account will be there. So system will automatically generate those intercompany lines based on intercompany rules setup. Okay, but this is like one segment. But say take an example of Apple. They are tracking their profitability, or they are treating iPhone division and Mac division separately. Okay. So each and every transaction at Apple level also it should like balance, and at these division level also it should balance each and every transaction, like your expense, revenue, everything, whatever journal entries you are creating, it should balance at that highest level and at second level as well. Okay. So or you can have a requirement for third balancing segment also. So system will generate those additional lines to balance your journal based on second and third balancing segment as well. Okay, so you can have up to 3 balancing segments, but so far I have not seen a single implementation using second and third balancing segments, and it comes with some cost, because say you have just a simple, say my second balancing segment is say 1000. This is my second balancing segment. Okay, and $1,000 debit and credit. In this case also system will generate those intercompany lines, right? Now if it is 102, then system will generate 3-4 additional intercompany lines. So posting process might take little longer. So a number of lines in your GLJ lines will be too much, and it will be very difficult to reconcile. So depending on your requirement, Oracle is provided up to 3 balancing segments. Depending on your requirement, you can choose whether you want just primary balancing segment or you need second and third balancing segment as well. Okay. So this is the chart of account structure, or how chart of account is designed in Fusion. You can have security rules. So there are 2 types of security in GL. One is based on your, or basically it is, yeah, there are 2 types of securities. One is based on your data access set. Data access set concept same as EBS R12. So you can restrict a user by ledger set or ledger, or by a balancing, primary balancing segment. Okay. So you can have that those 3 levels in data access set. Additionally, if you want like particular or few accounts should be accessed by this particular role or this particular user only, in that case, you can create security rules. In EBS, we used to create these security rules and then associate responsibilities with those security rules, so that those particular responsibilities will not be able to access particular few accounts or few cost centers. So same concept exists here, but here it restricts by roles. And then you have cross-validation rules. So same concept as EBS, you can validate like a company, all your expense and revenue accounts must have cost center associated with it, or all your expenses must have cost center in that combination, or these accounts must have project segment populated. So those kind of cross-validation rules across the segments you can define. So cross-validation rules, and then you have GL code combinations. So same GL underscore code underscore combinations table still exists in Fusion, and same you will have code combination ID as a unique key in that table, and then you will have all the segments in it. You can enable, disable from any combination, and you can have dynamic insertion so that you don't have to create that combination beforehand. You can use it directly in the transaction, or if you have unchecked that, then you will have to create all the combinations before you can use it in transactions or journals. Okay. So there are few things like how do you decide on the chart of account, and what are the best practices on defining the or designing the chart of account. So assigning each business dimension a separate segment. So say for example, I have seen a particular company, they were using location segment, and they were also putting project in it. So project and location both in same segment. Now, if they want to use or they want a report based on location and project together, like this project for this location, they cannot get it. So it restricts them in some restrict the functionality. So assign each business dimension a separate segment. Use alpha characters only in parent accounts. It is advisable that you use alphabetical characters only in parent accounts. The reason, like when your GL clerk or somebody is entering the code combination, normally they will be entering the child values, and they should be able to enter that entire combination using their numerical keyboard. They don't need to switch here and there. They should be able to enter that entire combination using that numerical keyboard. It is a best practice. There is no restriction from Oracle. You can have any values in those child values as well, but it is a best practice. Consider data entry efficiency while ordering your segments. Say you have future segment, you have company segment, you have project segment, you have intercompany segment, account segment, and cost center segment. Now, how these segments should be ordered? If you say company segment is my segment 7, last segment, each and every transaction will require that, and your future transaction, like spare segments, those are in the beginning. So they will have to press tab so many times to reach to that company segment. So it is advisable that you should order your chart of account in such a way that the segments which you want to enter in most of the transactions, those are in front. And segments which you rarely use, like project segment or future segment, intercompany segment. So all these segments you will not be populating for most of the transactions. So those could be towards the end of that entire combination. So consider that, and it is better to design a global chart of account Now based on structure and structure instance, you should create one structure for your group company, and rest all your subsidiaries should be using that same chart of account. It will help you in consolidation. Say account values, if those are same across all the companies, then it will help you in consolidation. That company segment, it can be global. You don't need to create 10 different chart of account structures and maintain the, if a new company is added, you need to add in those 10 value sets. So try to create a global chart of account and use it if you have a requirement, like you can keep 1 or 2 segments as local segment, and those individual subsidiaries, they can define the meaning of that segment and use it. Design size and numbering system. So decide on the size of the chart of account segments. So each segment, like what will be the length of each segment. You could whether to permit alphabetical character, so that is normal numerics only, and alphanumerics. So all these options are there, you can select, but best practice is like you should have numerics only for your child accounts, and parent account you can have numeric as well as alphabetical characters. So depends on your requirement, but child values should be numerical only. Now each and every chart of account segment will have an associated value set. Value set is the main purpose of the value set is to control what type of values can be used as chart of account segment values. So value set concept, same as EBS 10.6, 11I, R12. It is same F&D flex values, that is the table name. So same concept, you will use that value set, and these are possible validations: independent, table validation, format only, independent. For your chart of account, all your segments should be independent validation. Dependent value sets are dependent chart of account segments are not supported as of now. So we used to create account and sub-account. Sub-account is based on my account segment value. That concept is not supported in Fusion yet. So be very careful. I have seen in some projects like they have decided on chart of account, and later on they realize that this dependent segment is not supported in Fusion yet. You will be able to create that dependent segment. There should not be any issue. But when you go for reporting and when you go for data entry, it will cause issues. So do not use dependent segment as of now. And table validation, we should not be having table validation for our chart of account because then you will not be able to create hierarchies. So normally we use this independent validation for our chart of account segments. So table validation is basically you will write a SQL query to get the values. Okay. And format only, this normally we use for DFF, not for this chart of account segment. Format only, like I want to give like a DFF on invoice header, that could be a free text up to 50 character or 80 character. So I'll use this format only value set. Okay. Okay. So any question on this part? Okay. This value set, as I explained, like it will give you like it will restrict the values, possible values in a segment. It's kind of validation which we have. So we'll see how we define the chart of account and values in it. So all these like chart of account, currency and calendar, it comes under financial reporting structure. So how do we go to this, navigate to this? So so this is how it will look like when you go to this financials, expand this financials under common application configuration for financials. enterprise structure for financials, and last item in this enterprise structure will be financial structure. Let me just close all these. So last item in this is financial reporting structure, and here you have chart of account to define chart of accounts, define calendar and currencies. So first thing we need to do is define value sets. So for our this training purpose, we'll create a very simple chart of account with the 3 segments. Okay, company, account, and say department. Very simple chart of account we will create for our training. So let's create 3 value sets. One more thing, like normally your company segment and intercompany segment both will have same values, but still I would recommend you to create 2 different segments. There are 2 reasons to it. One is when it is not an intercompany transaction, your intercompany segment should have a value 000, right? And second thing, if you have enabled security rules, and your security rules are associated with value sets. So if you have defined some security rules on company segment, same rules will be applicable on intercompany segment as well. So considering these 2 things, you should create different value set for company and intercompany, or balancing an intercompany segment. Okay, so let's create a value set here. Click on plus, value set code. So 1706 MA company. In module, we can give ledger setups or general ledger. Let's say general ledger. Validation type, as I said, it should be independent. Wait for some time after entering the independent. So it will populate this. In validation type, put character. Even if you want only numbers in your chart of account, but still you should select character. The reason is when it is stored in a database, it is stored in a character field. Okay, those segment 1, segment 2 or F&D flex values, those columns are character columns. Second thing, unnecessary system will be validating every time whether it is numeric value or character value. So if you have, say, like in financial institutes, like they will have millions of transactions on daily basis, so all these small things will also matter. The performance might degrade. It will not be very significant, but we should take care of these small things. So use character. If you want to enable security rules, then check this checkbox. Okay. Validation value subtype, text. What is the length of this segment? So let's say my length of company segment should be 2. Uppercase only, 0 fill. So it should always have 2 characters. So you can decide this based on your requirement. Save or save and close. Don't create values as of now, because this value set is currently independent value set. It is not linked to your chart of account. So when you define values and if it is associated with chart of account, it enables those qualifiers: summary only, parent, budgeting allowed, posting allowed. These 3 for normal segments, and for natural account segment, it will enable account type, and there are few additional qualifiers in Fusion. So all those will be enabled only if this value set is associated with the chart of account. As of now, it is not associated. So don't create values as of now. Otherwise, whatever values you create now, you will not be able to see those values while creating the transactions. Okay. One more thing I just remembered, if you are implementing Hyperion like PVCs or enterprise planning system, uh, it is advisable to have all your chart of account segments with different length. So PVCs, that planning and budgeting system, which is a Hyperion, Hyperion planning cloud version. So it has a restriction that all the values, your segment values and description should be unique. Okay. So say for example, my cost center segment and say project segment, both are having 4 characters or 5 characters. And you will have a default value 0000 in both the segments, or you have 10,000 as a cost center value also and 10,000 as project value as well. So this will cause issues in PVCs. If like you are having duplicate values, then you will not be able to use standard seeded integration with PVCs. You will have to write some custom code and upload the file manually, because again you will be tweaking that value. Maybe in cost center you will prefix or suffix something to make it unique. So it is advisable that all your segments are unique, or segment lengths are unique. Okay, but like company and intercompany, we cannot do anything. Both will be of same size. Unless and until like it is like very mandatory, you should try and avoid that, having 2 segments with same segment length. Also, like when you create say cost center and intercompany, and you have 000 as value in both the segments, 000, and in intercompany you have 00. Make sure that your description is different. You should give default cost center and default intercompany, not like default in both the cases. If you have default in both the cases, even in Fusion, we will have a problem. When you see that in account monitor, which is a monitoring tool for GL balances, it will cause issues. It will not show those balances. So make sure that your descriptions are also unique across all the segments. PVCs is a planning and budgeting cloud system. So in on-premise, we had Hyperion planning. So that tool is used for budgeting. So you have different 10 departments, and each department will be doing the budgeting, and finance will be controlling how much budget they can have, what kind of approvals it will require. So that budgeting process can be handled in Hyperion planning, which is on-premise, and PVCs planning and budgeting cloud system, which is on cloud. Okay, it comes under EPM family, enterprise performance management. So many customers are going for this PVCs tool for planning and budgeting. Okay, let's create our second value set, that is for account 1706 MA account. And say my account segment is of 5 character, uppercase only, 0 fill, save and close. You should always create 1 or 2 spare segments. We call it as future segment or spare segment, so that in future, like if this system is used for next say 5-10 years, you don't know what will be the business scenario. So if you have some requirement in future, your chart of account should be able to handle that future requirement. So it is advisable to use or keep 1 or 2 future segments, and during implementation cycle, if your requirement is changing, don't use those future segments before go live, because then you will lose that. So better you create 1 or 2 future segments and keep it after go live, like after production, you may have some requirement. Department is of say 3 character and uppercase only. Click on save and close. So I have created 3 value sets. I can easily find out. If you create using say rapid implementation, you will not have a control. You will not have a control on this value set code or value set description. System will automatically create as account, company, cost center, like that. So normally we would prefer to have all custom objects like prefixed with XX or some company short name like G or XXTS or something. So depending on your requirement, you should have it, but rapid implementation sheet will not give you this flexibility. Okay, so now I have 3 value sets created. Okay, next step is to create chart of account structure. And you know, like in financials, we have 4 key flex fields. Key flex fields are required for certain functionalities to work. Those 4 key flex fields are this chart of account. Second is your asset category, asset key, and asset location. These 4 key flex fields are there, same as EBS R12. And you have descriptive flex field. That concept also exists in Fusion or in cloud. Same way, you can have configure those 15 attribute columns. You can have context sensitive attributes as DFFs as well. Okay, so we know that for chart of account or in GL, you just have 1 key flex field, so you can do a blind search here. Otherwise, you will need to remember GL hash is the key flex field code for this accounting flex field. So click on do a blind search on this structures page. Okay, then click on manage structure. So next 2-3 tasks we will be performing on this screen. So first is manage structure. So now we will be creating our chart of account structure. You can review existing chart of account structures, like this is your A2F COA structure. We'll create our own chart of account structure, that is so structure code 1706 COA structure, name, description. What is the delimiter for your chart of account? So say hyphen, enabled. Click on save. Don't click on save and close because we need to add these segments here. So click on save. Now we will add these segments. So first segment is say company. Okay, press a tab and wait for 1 or 2 seconds. System will automatically populate this API name. This API name, if you keep your mouse pointer here, specify a name that identifies the segment in web services, reporting and other integration points. Changing this value could break the integration point. So when you are integrating with third-party applications, say for example, you want to create invoices, okay, through web service from other system. So web service will be referring this particular structure with this API name. Same we will see in, this particular segment as this name. Okay, it will not refer with the segment 1, segment 2, it will refer with company. Okay, so name, description, sequence number will be 1, prompt. You can give a short prompt, COMP or company, same value. Display width 2, column name, you can give segment 1. Here it says default value set. Okay, so 1706 MA company, and these are the segment labels which you can associate. So say primary balancing segment, click on this right arrow to enable this, to get that in selected labels, and click on save and close. Okay. Similarly, let's create our second segment, which is account. Press a tab, wait for 1 or 2 seconds, system will automatically generate this API name. There is a particular naming convention. So if you change this or if you type it, system might create issues like it will not allow you to save this segment. So better to accept whatever default system is generating. Sequence number 2, prompt account. In short prompt, let's give ACCT. Display width will be 5. Column name segment 2. Default value set. This is default because you can go and change this value set at a structure instance level, and associate this natural account segment label to this segment. These two, company and natural account segment, these two are must for your chart of account. If you have not created these two segments with these labels, system will not allow you to deploy your chart of account. I'll come to what is deployment. And third segment is my cost center or cell department. So select segment 3 and default value set code for department, and I'll associate cost center segment to this. Cost center segment, it will not have any functionality in GL as such, but if you are using expense management cloud service, this label is must. Without this, you will not be able to do the accounting for your expenses. Okay, so now I have my 3 segments. You can create up to 30 segments, but total length of your chart of account including delimiter should not exceed 240. You can expect one question in certification also. Okay, save and close. Now we have created our structure. Next step is to create structure instance. That is mandatory, because a structure instance is basically your chart of account. You can compare EBS chart of account with structure instance. So what all things we have done in a structure? We have decided on number of segments. We have decided on the sequence of these segments. We have decided on the segment labels, which segment will be what. We have decided on delimiter, and we have given prompt and default value set. Okay, now at structure instance level, so let's create a structure instance. So don't go out of this window and click on create. Give some meaningful name here. The reason is this particular name will be used for creating the S-base cube. So when you are doing the analysis in SmartView, SmartView is a Hyperion based tool for multidimensional analysis in Excel. You will see this name as that S-base cube name. So give some meaningful name. Try to avoid underscore and those things in this name. Okay. Then enable dynamic combination creation allowed. So dynamic insertion, whether you want to allow or not. Shortened alias enabled, and structure name. So associate the structure which we had created just now. Okay. So system will bring all those segments automatically. Now you need to edit all these segments because we need to make it required. So value set, you can change your value set at this stage. So structure instance level, you can have a different value set associated with this segment. Make it required, displayed, BI enabled. I want this segment in OTBI also, so make it BI enabled. Default type constant, or if you want to give some default value, you can provide this default value. Query required, optional or selectively required. So when you are, say for example, creating a journal or creating an invoice and you are entering the distribution, and on that small window where you can enter that combination, you will see a search button. So you can search for existing combinations which are already created. You can do a blind search if it is optional. And so it is a very big company, say financial institute, and they have say 500,000 combinations. In that case, if you do a search without entering anything, system will take too much time and it will consume a lot of server resources as well. So you want employees to restrict, like they must enter say company segment value, then they can do a search, or they must enter company and say cost center value, and then they can click on search and select the combination. So this query required is for that purpose. So by default it will be optional. A tree name, so this is a account hierarchy name. We will not be associating tree name here, because if you associate a tree name like account hierarchy, it is called as trees in Fusion. So if you associate tree with one segment, then you will have to do it for all the segments, including future segments as well. So better not to associate here. We'll create account hierarchies directly, and those can be used. So don't give tree name here. If you are giving, then you must give for all the segments. And let's say selectively required for company segment, so that user must enter company segment before they can search for existing combinations. In earlier versions, we could give constant values value here directly, but now in release 12 there is a validation. I think it doesn't allow you to save because we have not created this value yet. But in earlier version, it was allowed even if that value doesn't exist in the value set yet. So later on, we may have to come back and modify if we want default value. Okay, click on save and close. So now my structure instance is created. That is my group COS 1706 MA group COA. Okay, now next step is deployment. In EBS, we used to compile our chart of account, and so say for example, if like all of you are doing this practice, and say one user has created just company segment and he is still yet, or he is yet to create that account segment. Okay, and somebody else is trying to compile because he has finished. His deployment will fail because one of the chart of account is having issues. So unless and until all the chart of accounts are having proper values, we will not be able to, or proper setup, we will not be able to deploy it. Okay, so deployment successfully. If there are any errors, you can see those errors here. Warnings, those are fine. It could be because of some other segment, but there should not be any errors. If there are any errors, we will not be able to use this chart of account unless we rectify that error. Okay, so deployment status, a green tick mark will come once it is deployed. Okay, and you can see the deployment error. So now my chart of account is created. Okay, so we have performed this structure creation, structure instance creation. Both these steps we have completed in this. If you go to this, it will open that same window. So same window will be opened and you can perform all three tasks. Okay. Next step is to create values for our chart of account value sets. And we should create at least basic values as of now, because when we define our ledger, few basic values like retained earning account, that will be required. That is mandatory. So let's create one value in each of those value sets. So click on this task, value set values create task, and search for your value set. Don't click on this plus sign here, create sign. This create sign is to create value set. We want to create values. So click on manage values. Okay. And you can search for existing values here or create new values. So let's follow some naming convention, like I normally follow: 1 with asset, 2 with liability, 3 with revenue, 4 expenses, and 5 owner's equity. So let's create one account, say 50,001, retained earnings, start date, end date. Now you have summary, that is whether it is a parent account or child account, allow posting, allow budgeting, account type. So let's say it is owner's equity account. Your asset, liability, expense, revenue, owner's equity, and budgetary control, credit and debit. So if you are using budgetary control functionality, you can use those account types as well. But normally we will be using asset, liability, revenue, expense, and owner's equity. Third party control account. So customer control account, restrict GL to manual journals, supplier control account, and third party control account. So customer control account, you can use this account only with modules which are using customers. That means you can use it in AR. Restrict GL manual journals, so you cannot create manual journals. So say for example, your liability account, payables liability account, and receivable account, you don't want to allow anyone to post manual journals against those. So you can select that restrict GL manual journals. Supplier control account, modules which are using suppliers, we can use this particular account. And third party control account, you are getting say transactions from other sources, then you can use this account. You will not be using manual journals, you will not be using in payables, receivables, but from third party sources. When you are using, the system will allow transactions. Default is no. Reconcile. So there is a functionality in Fusion for subledger reconciliation. So normally at period end, what we do is all the open transactions in say payables, basically your payables trial balance and your GL liability account balance, both should match, right? So system has provided, or in cloud there is a functionality to reconcile or give a report which shows what is the liability balance as per GL, what is the liability balance as per AP, like opening balance, how many manual journals are posted against this liability account, what is how many invoices are posted, how many payments are posted, and what should be the closing balance as per GL, as per payables. And if there is any difference, it will show the difference. And it will also have a drill down. So from that difference, you can drill down and see what all transactions are causing this difference. So same concept is there in receivables as well as in payables. So you can reconcile your subledgers with GL very easily, or you can identify issues very easily. You don't have to run trial balance separately, run a GL trial balance or GL balance inquiry separately, and then find out how many transactions are not accounted or what are the reasons for this difference. So for liability account and receivable account, you should give yes here, and financial category. So when you say yes for liability account, associate accounts payable, accounts receivable, these are basically finance categories. So when you generate any report in OTBI related to GL, then you can group the accounts based on this financial category. Normally, we don't use this financial category because we don't use OTBI for GL reporting. But if you are using OTBI, then you can group the those accounts as per this financial category. Okay. So we have created one value, 50,001. That is my retained earnings. And let's create one parent account also for this, say 50,000. So and this will be my parent. When I say yes, it doesn't matter what value we have, but ideally we should have no and no in this. Account type, I'll give owner's equity. I don't need all these. So save and close.